Welcome to today's video, and I will be talking about the book Tuesdays with Morrie. Now, this book is about a college professor named Morrie Schultz, and one day he's diagnosed with ALS, which is the disease that Stephen Hawking had, which confined him to a wheelchair. During this time period, there were basically zero treatments for this disease, and Morrie realized he had limited time to live. This disease would, over time, stop him from being able to feel and move his appendages, and they would become more and more numb and harder to move until, for the most part, he barely could move at all. And at some point, the same thing would happen to his organs inside his body, and he would most likely suffocate or just suffer organ failure at the end of his life. And with this grim news now, realizing he's much closer to the end of his life than he thought he was, he ends up coming back in contact with an old student of his, and that is the author of the book, Mitch Albom. Throughout this book, the author recalls many of his meetings he's had with Morrie when he was in college and he was still his professor. And he noted that they often met on Tuesdays, just as happenstance. And at some point they made a notice of it, and they told themselves that we're Tuesday people. And when the author found out about Morrie's terminal illness, he of course got into more contact with him and set up several meetings with him. And across these several meetings, they often met on Tuesdays again. And so the book is a series of consecutive Tuesdays that he goes and he meets with his old college professor just to talk to him about life. And he asks him pretty much on his deathbed, be it months from now, what he thinks about love, relationships, money, culture, power, and all of these other different things that are important to, I guess, the human experience. And at least today, I'm going to talk about the parts that stood out to me the very most. And the first subject that he talks about that at least is very important to me is he asks him about culture, what he thinks about culture, what should be said about the current culture. And he says, the culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves, and you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they're busy doing things they think are important. This is because they're chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others. Devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you meaning and purpose. So first off, this book was made in, I think 20 years ago? 1997, oh my gosh. So at the very least, this book is damn near 30 years old. And what it's saying appears to still be true. So the culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves. That's very interesting because I think it hilariously is trying its very best to just simply tell people to feel good about themselves. And of course, the opposite of that is going to be true. If somebody doesn't feel good about themselves, you can't just, hey, you should feel good about yourself to feeling better. It doesn't work that way. So the first part of the first quote says that the current culture does not make people feel good about themselves. Great. Of course not. I think there is an air of dissatisfaction with oneself that's sort of being shifted around in our current culture today. And of course, hilariously, the culture itself passes along this message that everybody should just be fine with themselves. You're fine the way you are. You're great the way you are. No, you don't need to change. You're phenomenal. You're perfect. You're just a masterpiece. You're a 10. It's it's this really terrible message for self-development. It's like the worst kind of self-help book that just, it's a bunch of pages that tells you, hey, you're great, you're wonderful, you're doing great. Keep doing what you're doing. Everything's fine. And you're like, I picked this book up because none of that's true. I don't feel fine. I don't feel like I'm satisfied with myself. So a bunch of people telling me you're fine the way you are is not going to put me in a position to feel better. What's probably going to make the average person feel better is being shown an opportunity to grow. Being shown that there is more that they can get out of life, that there's more they can accomplish, that there's more they can be than just the person they are currently, which they are dissatisfied with. So that's, I think, at least what encompasses the first part of this quote. And the second part that goes, and you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. Basically, that messaging that I just talked about that is been floating around in our culture for who knows how long at this point, maybe my entire life, which is really disappointing. Don't buy into it. Don't listen to it at all. Get on whatever path to growth that you feel you need to take as an individual. And you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. I think that there's two steps to that right there, is that you acknowledge that the culture doesn't work and the messaging that I currently just described sucks and really just keeps people in the same dissatisfied place that they have been in. And by rejecting that, you either have to find yourself a new culture or you have to make one yourself. And you have to lead a community of sorts, and you have to find the right people. You have to find the right people or lead the right people. And one of those takes searching, and the other one takes being the first person to step foot into uncharted territory. You have to do what you can for the people in your immediate surroundings, and that's what will ultimately create the culture that you want, because you lead by example. Very simply put, if you do lead by example and model the ideals and standards that you wish to encourage others to do, they will replicate that if they are the right kind of people, of course. Because not everybody's going to return kindness for kindness, and not everybody's going to return violence for violence. Everybody is different, and everybody's going to receive any sort of leadership and kindness and community building in a different way, and the right people will respond in the right way, and the wrong people won't. They will be lost to whatever it is they are going towards. At least for me, what I've learned is that I really have to cultivate the community of friends around me. A long while ago, I had a gathering with friends where we sat around the campfire in my backyard, and we just got to chill and talk. And I just described the whole scenario to you in 2 sentences, and it was that simple. And I sat back in relaxation and a sense of belonging, a sense of feeling that I'm with the right people. That was when I knew I had to make a conceited effort to continue this and to cultivate this and to bring this gathering and this group of people together constantly. If I wasn't going to do it, nobody will. And maybe after a while of doing that, the other people would realize that same very thing. And it's been several years since then, and that group of friends has grown incredibly close, and we are like a tight-knit community. And we gather weekly at this point, if not more often, for times together where we can just be with each other. And it's awesome, for one thing. And for two, it did take me doing it first. It took me A, realizing, oh, this is great. Whatever else is out there sucks and does not come close to this. And then B, going back towards this and trying to lead people back towards this through my own actions and chasing towards it. And in the second quote, where it really talks about the things that are wrong with our values as a society, so it goes very quickly from culture to values and why the values of a culture affect the culture. Let me talk about this part. So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They're half asleep even when they feel like they're busy doing things they think are important. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others, devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning. And that is the very foundation of what I've just described, is that everybody has to search out the thing that is truly important. We can't just make something important by our own decision making. Some things simply are by rule of life. And those things, as he describes, is relationships with those around us, our community members, and just the people around us. And not only can you create communities around aspects of yourself that gives you purpose, because purpose is fulfillment. Fulfillment is what gives you purpose. And happiness is simply a fleeting emotion that does not stay. Happiness is a chemical, and fulfillment is something spiritual. Something in your soul and your very being feels fulfilled. Something in your brain feels happy. That's a huge difference, because you can fill your brain with other stuff that's gonna make you feel the sensation of happy, but you can't really fake that with your own soul. Your soul is something different, your fulfillment is something different. And you can do that by dedicating yourself to anything that really grows you as a person. And I can use myself as an example again for this, is that there's many things that I've decided I wanted to learn and I wanted to just create, because the action of creation is incredibly fulfilling, especially if it's a sort of niche thing that you really like. So if I was told that I needed to sew sweaters, I wouldn't really enjoy that very much. That wouldn't really feel fulfilling. It wouldn't really be creatively inspiring or particularly interesting. But what is interesting to me is I like to work with wood. I like to carve things. I like to create things out of wood if I get the chance. I don't have a lot of heavy machinery, so I can't really make furniture and stuff, but I really like to carve wood. I like to make spoons and other small objects that people get to get everyday uses out of. And with this, I will call it a gift, with this gift of wanting to create these things out of wood, one fun part is that eventually you're making too many things to really hold on to, and two, you get pretty good at it and you get to start giving them away to people you care about as gifts. And so not only do I get to bring people together in communal gatherings and other things like that, I also get to give them gifts and share the things that I'm very interested and passionate about, and things that give me a sense of purpose to them, so that I can not only share the things that fulfill me, but I can also further fulfill myself and the people around me by the action of sharing that with them. And it's through this very act of creating things that I get to share this activity that very much fulfills me with the people around me, and through doing that, it not only fulfills me further, but it adds to them as well. If I pour out what I have to other people, that in turn pours back and fills me more than I gave. It's one of the spoons I make. Check it out. Woo! Now, the third and final section of the book that really stood out to me was the portion about money. And if you missed it, the first section was about culture, and the second one was about values, and those ones quickly put themselves into each other, so they were a little bit close related, but I did want to draw a hard line in between them and to differentiate the two and their own individual importances, as well as how they mesh together. We've got a form of brainwashing going on in our country. Do you know how they brainwash people? They repeat something over and over again. That's what we do in this country. Owning things is good. More money is good. More property is good. More commercialism is good. More is good. More is good. We repeat it, and we have repeated it over and over until nobody bothers to think otherwise. The average person is so fogged up by all of this, he has no perspective on what's really important anymore. These people were so hungry for the love that they were accepting substitutes. They were embracing material things and expecting a sort of hug back, but it never works. You cannot substitute material things for love, or for gentleness, or for tenderness, or for camaraderie. So at the very beginning, just a little fun tangent there, is about the brainwashing segment. It is a form of brainwashing. What does he say? He's repeating something over and over and over again. Germans in World War II in their concentration camps, and how did they get away with something like this? And that was through the use of propaganda. And I don't remember who it was exactly in the German military or government at the time that said this, but it was, if you repeat something over and over and over again, eventually people will start to believe it. That was what this person had to say about propaganda. And he's very much right. That's how you get away with stuff, is you print 700 articles from 800 different news sources that say the exact same headline, word for word, which, you know, thankfully that doesn't happen anymore, but that's just a quick fun side note. And that is a really good example of what we see, at least in our country today. He's referring to the United States, and I assume most people in this are, at the very least, in what's considered the first world and or the United States itself. When we are in here, we really just are taught about commercialism. We're taught about buying things. We're taught all kinds of horrible things. We're almost supposed to treat each other transactionally into seeing what we can get out of the people around us instead of what we can give to them. It's so much mixed message. It's not mixed messaging. It's actually very clear, horribly negative messaging. But it goes against the things we know to be true, the things we know inside of ourselves to be true, the things that we know we need to do to be fulfilled, to give fulfillment, and to gain fulfillment once more. Without this cycle of truly being kind and communal to the people around us, we never really will feel fulfilled. If we aren't prioritizing the people around us first, we will never find the people who will also prioritize us in return. Without that really incredibly healthy and wonderful loop that comes from this connectiveness that we as humanity can achieve, we don't feel fulfilled, and we feel alone in a world that's more populated than it ever has been. And in a world that's more open to just about every possibility, we feel stuck. That is the main focus and message of this book, I think, and that's without fulfillment, without our own improvement, growth, and values being tested and worked upon throughout our entire lives, we will never truly be fulfilled. We'll never be fulfilled. We'll never be fulfilled, and we also will never be happy. We can feel sensations caused by whatever vice we choose, but there'll be something missing right here. There'll be this real empty spot anytime we smile that reminds us our smile is fake. And thankfully, this book does point out very much a good solution: to devote ourselves to loving others, to devote ourselves to the community around us, and to devote ourselves to something that gives us purpose and meaning. Whatever craft that may be, whatever dedication of ourselves to others that may be. Without it, we won't feel very good. And with it, we will feel better than ever, and better than doing really anything else will ever make us feel. Love the people around us, love the person that tries, love the you that tries, and be there for all of them. This has been Tuesdays with Morrie, one of the best books I've really ever read. I'd recommend it to everyone. That's what I say for every book on this channel at this point. So You should listen to me. Yeah, that's it. That's the video. Video's over.